of mine and an old friend of a lot of friends of mine. His name is Chicken John. He's an activist, he's a showman. He's wearing a beautiful vintage boater. Let's give it up for the man. Check this out.
The girls from Paul's Hat Works have asked me to come tonight and read to you from my book, The Book of the Is. And The Book of the is kind of it's a neat little book. I sat down to write a book about how, the opposite of love is fear. And I had this opinion that hope is a kind of fear. And I sat down to write this book about how hope is fear, and I failed, and I wrote this instead. And I'm kind of glad I did. I'm going to read you a story. Was anybody at the Literary Death Match last night? Anybody? I'm going to read the same story. But I'm going to do it better this time. And I'm going to read you a story. The reason why I'm reading this story tonight, I can read other stuff from the book, but it's all long. It's too long. So this is the shortest piece in the book. But the real reason why I want to read it is because it's a story about a collaborative artwork. And that's kind of what's happening here, sort of, isn't it? Yeah. It's a collaborative artwork where, there's this hat shop here, and they're trying to open another location in New York City, and they're looking for co-conspirators, right? Yeah. That's the way it feels to me. And that's kind of a cool thing, and it's something that should be supported, and I'm here supporting it. Yeah! So I'm going to read to you. I'm going to read to you the epilogue of the Book of the Is. Okay. I like to go around at the junkyard. It relaxes me. I like to noodle around and dig through the glove boxes, look under the seats, see what possibilities are still in the things that people threw away.
You're a tweaker.
Really?
That's the definition of a tweaker.
You're really gonna heckle me right here. The first fucking sentence of the book, you're gonna heckle me.
I'll stop.
Give me $1. You owe me $1. Give me $1. You're gonna heckle me on the first sentence. You gotta give me $1. Come on, give me $1. Come on. Come on. Hey, you're not gonna get away with heckling. Go. I'll take it. Give me that $5.
There we go. That means I can go 4 more times.
First
I
sentence.
will.
You're gonna heckle on the first sentence.
Well, the definition of a tweaker is someone who goes to the junkyard, goes to the glove boxes, looking to find the stashes in the crashed cars and taking what is discovered.
Now, is that in Webster's?
No, that's in the hipster's dictionary.
You're gonna love this story.
I know. I'm
You are.
excited.
You're gonna like it more than everybody else because you paid $5 more than everybody else for this story. It says here in the beginning of the story, I like digging around at the junkyard because I'm a tweaker. It relaxes me. Noodle around, dig through the glove boxes, look under the seats, see what possibilities are still in the things that people threw away. It's like reincarnation. There was an old Ford Granada, terrible car, late 70s as I remember. The back was all smashed in. It drove to the accident, as they say at the junkyard. Good parts under the hood, all that, but not really a car anymore, now a loose association of parts. After they've been stripped, most end up in a compactor, but before you can squash it, you gotta clean out the trunk, make sure there isn't any toxic waste or whatever in there. You wanna make sure there isn't a suitcase of money either. Both of those things have been found in trunks. Get rid of the spare tire. You also wanna make sure there isn't a dead body. So you can imagine the surprise when that is what exactly was found in the trunk of that old Ford. It was in a beautiful little box, taupe-colored, like the sexy lady in Goldfinger, about the size of a standard knick-knack, but heavier, kind of shiny, very majestic. I opened the top, and there were 2 pieces of paper and a set of very burnt military dog tags. One piece of paper was to the gods of chaos, a handwritten poem, which I will read to you later. The other, an official document from Control, a death certificate. Under them was a plastic bag with a twist tie, but a twist tie of a quality I'd never seen before. In the bag were the cremated remains of Ulysses Vergelli. Now think about how this happens. Ulysses dies with no heirs, and a friend is presented with the remains. Maybe a relative who didn't even know him came to pick him up. When you're a veteran, they pay for the cremation. The remains go in the trunk, and on the way to the funeral home, the car gets into an accident. Or maybe they were in that trunk for 7 years, or 17 years. You see, he died on 1/18/1983. There's no way to know the story, really, but I couldn't stop trying to put it together. There's one fact that I do know, that Ulysses had no service, no funeral, no memorial to his life. He was thrown in the trunk of an old Ford and forgotten, like a pair of jumper cables. I imagine he worked hard, maybe a machinist at the Navy Yard. His wife died before he did. I imagine that their son was a deadbeat. Maybe he was from Atlanta before he relocated to San Francisco after being stationed here in World War II. Or maybe he was from Meridian, Mississippi. With a name like Ulysses, he was likely from the South. I imagine he died of lung cancer after smoking Pall Malls for 70 years. A slow, agonizing, lonely death, and the shame and degradation of not having a proper funeral. I took the ashes to the Odeon bar and put them on a shelf above the whiskey and waited until Bloomsday, June 16th, to give Ulysses his rightful event. I gathered together a table on the stage and transferred the ashes from the golden box to 50 or 60 smaller Ziploc bags. I put a few bar candles on the table and took off my hat and asked everyone to please be quiet for a moment, and I began to speak. I had no idea really what I was going to say. I never really do. I just kind of wing it, not being an actor and all. I just started talking. And I talked about the kind of people who owned Ford Granadas. I thought that would be a good place to start. My first proper girlfriend drove a Ford Granada. Of course, it was a hand-me-down from her dad. It's like the official car of men whose pants chafe their armpits. I talked about how no matter what it is, what it cost, or how coveted it was in its life, in death, it all gets processed at the junkyard as one of 4 things: ferrous metal, non-ferrous metal, precious metal, or garbage. That's it. Your laptop, your iPhone, your $3,000 54-inch LCD TV, all in like piles, moved around by forklifts. I talked about how every once in a while something comes to the junkyard that's simply amazing. A 1950s fat jiggling machine, a gynecologist's examination table. Sometimes things that come to the junkyard don't make sense, like hundreds of 9-iron golf clubs, or 3 trucks full of booth displays from the irritable bowel syndrome seminar and conference. I told him that sometimes you'll find a gun under the front seat, garbage bag, a pot in the trunk. Jericho found 1,000 records in a car once. The driver was killed by the accident. He still DJs those records to this day. Sunglasses, umbrellas, tools, toys, maps of strange places, really old gum, Newports, and now human remains. Thus far, Ulysses was the first human remains discovered at the junkyard. I was talking and I noticed that people locked eyes with me. I was talking, but I really wasn't. And I was starting to think about who was saying these words, what idea I was trying to convey, why and how. I was a witness to what I was saying, spinning my web, drawing them in, holding the mic, just like that. The lights bright in my eyes, which is unusual. Usually the brim of my hat touches my glasses to put my eyes in shadow so I can see the crowd and make sure the doorman isn't putting the money in his pocket or someone isn't drinking from a flask. I was holding the hat to my chest and I almost, but not quite, was able to float into the audience and disengage completely and just be a witness. But then I thought about it too much and broke the spell. And it was I that was talking again. I noticed my timbre and tone meter, perfect. All eyes on me, no one raising their glasses to drink, no one ordering at the bar, no arms folded. I had them. It's a powerful place to demand compliance. I told them that we take care of our own at the junkyard, and that the junkyard is a sacred space, and human remains found at the junkyard get proper burials. I explained to them what was going to happen, what we're going to do. We're going to have a moment of silence. We're going to light these candles. We will then bow our heads and appreciate the ineffable is. We are going to raise our glasses and salute a man who aged 80 years and outlived everyone he championed. His funeral was postponed, but now we are going to make up for that. I cracked a whippet capsule and inhaled deeply into my lungs, and I held my breath. My 6 senses melted into one antenna. And in that other universe, that moment of silence lasted forever. In that other universe, we are still there at 3223 Mission Street with our heads bowed forever. In that other universe, Ulysses will always be young, operating the lathe with squinting eyes as the smoke from his cigarette creeps up his face. As we light candles in his honor, we toasted, and one by one, people approached the stage and took one of the small plastic bags containing the last remaining corporeal form of our new friend, Ulysses. To the far corners of this cruel, cruel world, I told them. I asked that the coffee-powered overachievers, who are the denizens of the City of Art and Innovation, take his ashes to the winds, hither and fro. And that's where Ulysses ended up. In the coming months, I started getting the occasional postcard or email reporting that Ulysses was let go to fly off the starboard side of a sailing vessel in the middle of the Atlantic. Ulysses was dumped over the edge of a tram car in Switzerland, on the plains of Mongolia, the steppes of Peru, in the sewers of Cuba. A volcano in Costa Rica snorted a bit by Torah before his friends could stop him. Happened. I personally left his ashes both at the Renbok Monastery in Tibet and a sprinkle in the treasure chest that I buried my beloved Damatina in. And now the little poem that was found in the tow-colored box. Goodbye, sweet Louis. Thy life was but a balloon in the hands of a child, let go to fly. Watch thy spirit soar to the skies. Goodbye, goodbye. Thank you.